Your Alamosa City Council, thank you for being here. With that, I will call this meeting to order. Would you please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, we have roll call. Start voting, please. Holly?
All councilors present, with Councilor Stefano previously requesting to be excused, and a quorum has been declared.
Thank you. Next up, we have agenda approval. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Holly?
No, there's not.
If not, Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the agenda with excusing Councilor Stefano.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda approval? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we have citizen comment. Tonight, we have one comment by Dorothy M. Brandt. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comment. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the city clerk at the start of the meeting. Thank you for being here, Dorothy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wanted to come down and, I write on.
We have to turn on your mic, Dorothy.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All right.
Could you give us your name and your address, Dorothy, for the record, please?
Oh, for the record, my name is Dorothy Brandt, and my address is in the county, so I usually give you the address of the museum, so that so you'll know that I belong here too. Anyway, I wanted to come down today because I had written a little poem as a thank you, and I thought that it should be given out down here among your peers. And this is for your mayor. And you know, you get a lot of hard knocks sitting up where you are there. And so sometimes I think it's good if we come down and we tell you good things. So this poem will explain it, and it's about a 30-second poem, but it will explain it. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I would like to hand it to you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I needed somebody at the last minute to give out the honors to our art students. And so at the last minute, I got real nervy, and I called up the mayor. And I said, it's the last minute, but if you're in town, I don't know much about protocol, So if you would consider this, I would greatly appreciate it. And so he said, well, I usually try to get out of town, but let me look at my record, and he did. And so he did that. And then on top of that, he came by the museum today, and he saw the school bus out there, and he came in, and he got to see the second graders. And I said, students, this is the mayor of Alamosa. They said, the mayor of Alamosa? And they got all excited, and so we're starting young. And if you guys will stand by me, we'll make it go, okay? And so this is my poem, Mr. Mayor. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that, and it meant the world to all. Students, parents, teachers. They know you all are involved, and it was really nice. And the poem goes something like this. For years, I've had a great friend, a hardworking businessman, always said, leave a message. I'll get back to you whenever I can. At times, he called after hours, sometimes even on the weekend. When the call came through, we both knew we were talking to a friend. One day he won a hard-won election and became the mayor of our town. Now the family includes the citizens. One more thing I have found. One day I needed a special favor as I slowly picked up my phone to ask if he would honor our students by presenting the art awards they had won. The answer was, when do you want me, and what should you want me, when you want me to be there? It would be a special honor for me. All I need to know is where. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get much better than this. And about 2 hours ago, one more thing I share with you very quickly, and I'm going out of here because they haven't eaten. 2 of my guests that I've been selling Thailand to for 8 years are in the audience, and one is named Dusty, and the other is named Coy. And I'd like them to stand up so you can see them. They're honored to be here, and I'm going to go feed them. Otherwise, I wouldn't go out and leave you here. So thank you with all my heart. And as the Thai would say, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I want to give this to Mr. Mayor. May I?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dorothy. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Dorothy. I appreciate it. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dorothy, and thank you, Council. I don't believe I have any more citizen comment cards. So we will move on to ceremonial items, which we don't have any either, and move on to consent calendar A. The consent calendar allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. Tonight we have approved the minutes of the May 16th, 2015 meeting, received April 2015 expenditure report, received April 15 monthly reports, award of bids for the 2015 street improvement project, as well as award of bids for the 2015 West 8th storm drain utility construction project. Council?
Mayor, if I may, before you make a motion, I didn't want to pull 2 items, but I had a couple of questions on items C1A and C1B, and maybe if Mr. Pat could probably answer those questions. On C1A, the street improvement project, I was trying to calculate what's the total amount of money that we're spending this year on the street project?
I think we have 722,000 budgeted.
700?
722, I believe, is the total.
And that includes the concrete replacement, I mean, the sidewalk replacement and that?
That includes sidewalk and curb and gutter on both projects, but it doesn't include the concrete replacement program.
And this is the total of all the streets that we're going to do? Or this is just this one?
No, we also have another 150,000 for maintenance, of which at your last meeting you approved a contract for 125,000 for slurry seal and microsurface work.
So I was just trying to get a clear picture of the total amount of money we're spending on blacktopping and streets, because that's always been a concern of people, you know, we're constantly putting money in there, and it seems like we're putting more and more money towards streets this year.
And Mr. Steenberg
Go ahead.
has sent me an email in regards to where he was breaking out some of that information that I'll forward on to council and take a quick look at that and forward that on to council for some total numbers.
But I think it's important, you know, sometimes when we put this stuff on consent calendar A, you really don't get a chance to let the people know what exact monies we're spending on streets and stuff, because that, like I said, that's always been a big concern. On my second question, C1B, there's a difference in the bids of $30,000. Would that have any effect at all from low bid to the next bid on the West 8 storm drainage utility?
As far as quality of work,
Well, I just saw that the difference was $30,000.
What you're seeing is two contractors with different schedules.
Okay.
You know, one of the high bid on this project
Okay.
was the low bid on Sunset Avenue.
Oh,
So they switched places. It's how they sharpen their pencil based on their schedule and what work they have in front of them.
okay. Thank you, Pat, very much.
You bet.
Counselor Johnson?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. With that, I will move that we approve consent calendar A as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent calendar A? Seeing none? Start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move on to regular business. Tonight, we have a presentation from an outside agency, Buck Creek Valley Animal Rescue, by Mr. Phil Ray Jack. Thank you for being here, Mr. Jack.
Well, thank
Would
you.
you please come to the podium, give us your name and your address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Phil Ray Jack, and I'm Dorothy Brandt's neighbor, so I live out in the county too. But the address is 3011 County Road 116 South, and I teach at Adams State. But I'm here tonight to share some information, introduce you to a project I've been involved in for the last year, and that's Buck Creek Animal Rescue. Basically, we're a horse rescue that's moved into the valley. We have a huge need, and before I go any further, we have a fundraiser coming up. I should say I'm not going to be asking for any city money today, so you can kind of relax. But we do have a fundraiser coming up, and I made a short video to kind of introduce people in the community to our rescue, and I'd like to share that with you.
When your day seems out of balance and so many things go wrong, when people fight around you and the clock drags on so long, when some folks act like children and fill you with remorse, just go out into your pasture and wrap your arms around your horse. His gentle breath enfolds you as he watches with those eyes. He may not have a PhD, but oh, he is so wise. His head rests on your shoulder. You hug him good and tight. He puts your world in balance and makes it seem all right. Your tears will soon stop flowing. The tension will be eased. The nonsense has been lifted. You are quiet and at peace. So when you need some balance from the stresses in your day, the therapy you really need, he's out there eating hay. Once when I was 6 years old, Dad took me away. We went to Colorado, said someday you'll wanna stay. We loaded up our camper, the Coleman stove and some fishing poles, and headed for paradise, where a few people go, sacred ground, where the mountains touch the sky, my sacred ground. Look at Neos River running by, my sacred ground. And Platoro mining town, it's my sacred ground. And the freedom I have found
Thank you. Just very briefly, we have two missions with the rescue. When I moved back to the valley, part of the reason I came back is because after 20 years of being away, I knew I had to be back in the saddle. And so I came, started looking for a horse, and saw some things that were pretty heartbreaking. And realized that the valley really needs to have a rescue. The problems are so huge, and the resources are so short, and I was overwhelmed. And then I met Richard and Robin Mills, and they had been running a rescue for over 30 years, started in California, went to Indiana, and then they came to join us here. And for the last year, we've been looking for a place. We've been bouncing horses from one place to another, making them our priority. Got to take care of the horses first. Now we've had a person who wishes to remain anonymous, who's letting us use their property. So we have property now, and we have some work that we need to do. There's always fixing fences and hay and vets and all the stuff that goes along with horses. And we have, we're all volunteers. We don't have anybody being paid. We're all doing it, and if we don't get the donations, then it comes out of our own pocket. So we've had to learn how to say no sometimes, but we're getting bigger. We're getting our feet underneath us. And then the second part is horses are really therapeutic. And I mentioned before when I came back, I knew how I had to be back in the saddle. I went through some pretty dark times, and a friend of mine took me to a horse ranch, and I realized I just needed that. So I came back. In the movie, you saw my sister. She lost her son a couple years ago, and she'll tell you that the only thing that got her through was a horse, because horses see through all the facades that we put up for other people. And we are hoping to work with a certified therapist that uses animals in their therapy. But right now, we're just bringing some of the vets in. One of our board members now was in the movie also. She got interested. She's a vet. Then she got interested because took her out, spent some time with the horses, and she felt like she belonged again. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I just wanted to introduce us to you, let you know we do have a fundraiser coming up on June 17th. It's going to be in the VFW Hall, and we hope to see you there. And I'm sure that I'll be back sometime asking for money, but this time I just wanted to let you know we're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Jack.
questions?
Before you leave, Councilor Vigil.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What does your fundraiser entail on June 17th?
I'm sorry?
What is going to be happening at your fundraiser on June 17th?
Oh, the June 17th fundraiser, we're going to ask for $6 per person, $10 per couple. We're going to have dinner. Fred Hargrove, who did the music for the background of the video, is going to MC and perform. And we also have some local writers who are going to share some of their works and stories about horses. I might even stand up and share some of my stuff. But and we're going to raffle off that painting that was at the end of the video that was donated to us by Evelyn Sprouse-Rowe, and she's a really talented local artist. And we're gathering whatever people want to throw our direction. We'll put it out there and ask you for money for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Coleman.
Phil, thank you and your staff for the work that you're doing with those horses. I'm just curious, how many horses are you housing right now?
Right now we have 3. Excuse me, 4. We had, at one point, we had 14. We found homes for 9 of them. One of them, the oldest one with the rescue, was over 30 years old. He didn't make it through the winter. That was heartbreaking. But he spent the last days getting a lot of care and attention, so that's gratifying. We have 3 that are housed at the rescue. That pony in the video a little bit, she's too small to compete with the other horses, and she doesn't like people being around her. So I moved her out to my place, and now she's convinced she's a puppy, but she's doing much better there.
Good. And if the community wants to, if they find a horse that they need to bring to be housed, how do they get in contact with you and your group?
I can give my phone number. We need to become more public with this. One of the reasons that we haven't been as open is because we've been having to say no to people. But now that we have a place, we can probably take on 5 more horses, 6 more horses, if we can fix the fence and if the horses can get along with each other. That's the other thing. We have to make sure that it's going to be a good environment for them. But my number is 719-588-6336.
And one final question, Phil. Other than money, what other needs do you find that you have for those horses right now?
We need hay. Always need hay. That's always a big thing around here. We need things like tack, bridles, saddles, anything that has anything to do with horses we can use. And people who have an afternoon free who want to come help us put up some fence and maybe do some painting. And we can use some volunteers.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions?
Councilor Gillespie.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Jack, for your involvement in this project. Seems very worthwhile. And I'd like to thank all those that volunteer with you. It's a very worthwhile project. So
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Griego.
One question, do you work also with the Humane Society?
We have had contact, but we haven't worked very closely together.
So if they get a horse, are they able to take it over to where you guys are located at?
That's what we're trying to get set up. Like I said, we were having to bounce horses around during the winter, so we weren't able to take on any more than what we had. Now that we're established, we want to work with them to be able to. So right now, if they pick up a horse, they have to take it all the way to Denver, and that's a hard trip, especially if a horse is in bad shape. So, yeah, we want to establish it where we can work with them. We've been in contact with some of the sheriff's offices, animal control officers, and things like that. But we're headed that direction. We're not quite there yet.
Good. And you talk about this fundraiser. Where are you going to hold this fundraiser at?
It's going to be at the VFW Hall. What is it, 519 Main, I think is the address.
And that's on what date again?
It's on Wednesday, June 17th. And it starts at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Phil, one of the things that I did want to ask you, if in the instant that someone wanted to donate, like a check or something like that, do they make it out to Buck Creek Valley Animal Rescue?
Yes, sir.
And then do you have an address as well?
It's my address,
Okay.
Phil Ray Jack. It's Buck Creek Animal Rescue, care of Phil Ray Jack, 3011, County Road, 116 South, Alamosa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For that. And we appreciate what you do for a lot of the wildlife, especially the horses that are in this area that probably need to be sheltered or taken care of in some form or fashion. Thank you, Phil.
And one of the things that's really exciting too is watching what happens when we bring the vets. 'Cause we don't have any formal therapy, but you bring them out and they start working with the horses and they fall in love. And it's really exciting to see that relationship develop too. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, council, we have business brought forward by city staff. Public Works this evening. Motion authorizing the mayor to sign and accept the Energy Impact Assistance Funds granted by the Department of Local Affairs in the amount of $165,074 for drainage and pedestrian improvements on West 8th Street, as well as the Alley Vacation Block 1 College subdivision. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, council. In 2014, if you remember, staff applied to the Department of Local Affairs for funding from Energy Impact Assistance Funds that would allow the city to extend the project on West 8th Street to more rapidly serve not only the residents in the area with drainage and pedestrian facilities, but to address safety issues specific to pedestrian access and drop-off at the elementary schools. $165,074 was granted as a result of that application, and formal acceptance of the grant is the next step in the ultimate appropriation of those funds.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions of Pat, council? Councilor Diego?
I didn't have a question. I just had a couple comments. I just want to thank city manager, yourself, and the mineral impact people for this kind of money, because I've been on council for 32 years, and we've been working on Washington Addition for that long, and now it's starting to finally come together, and monies like this will help out a lot.
They go a long ways.
Yes, it does. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Council? What are your wishes?
With that, Mayor, I'll make the motion that we allow the mayor to sign the grant money.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the motion to allow the mayor to sign the Energy Impact Assistance Fund grant from the Department of Local Affairs. Is there any further discussion? If not, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up is the Alley Vacation Block 1 College subdivision. Pat?
Thank you again, sir. A little background. Several years ago, a land transfer between Adams State College and the Trinity Lutheran Church resulted in the church obtaining the property to the rear of their facility for the relocation of the playground used by the children attending the church-run school. With the completion of the new playground, the church is now requesting the vacation of the alley that separates the existing building from the playground. This will result in a safer environment for the children and help alleviate what has been reported as troublesome local traffic in the area. At the time of the land transfer, it was understood and represented when this alley vacation was requested, the church would dedicate a new alley for access to solid waste and emergency vehicles. When the actual layout was being investigated, our commercial garbage truck was brought in the site to identify the necessary turning radii that we would require in the alley, and it was determined by the church that the area required for that truck to access the rear of the neighbor's property was greater than they had expected, and they approached the neighbors with the request to waive all emergency and garbage access to the rear of the property. Signed letters of acknowledgement have been obtained from each of the property owners to the east agreeing to the vacation and the relinquishment of emergency and city access. It has been agreed to by Fire Chief Chapman and Public Works personnel. This is a dead-end alley and it serves no other properties. There are no city utilities in the alley. There is electric that will have to be protected and access maintained for those utility owners.
Thank you, Pat. Councilor Johnson?
A couple questions, Pat. So I'm assuming that the property owners, their trash will be picked up on the curb?
Yes, sir.
And
Right now, there's a dumpster in the back that we pick up with a commercial truck. They will go to residential toters.
Okay. And the other question I have is there was reference to utility poles along that frontage. Is there still going to be a utility easement there, or how is that going
Yes.
to work?
Yes, those utility poles will have to be protected and access maintained for XL.
So the only access available will be for XL.
It'll be maintenance access for XL. There'll be no public access through there.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
Councilor Vihil?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Pat, looking at the picture, this is a few blocks from where I live personally, and I every Saturday or Friday, Sunday, in the springtime when the baseball or softball teams are playing at Adams State, a lot of folks will drive into that dirt parking lot and go through the alley or cut through where the mouse is right now and go to the softball fields. Will that happen now with this, if this were to go through?
No, I believe their intention is to gate that alley where the mouse is right now.
Yeah.
I believe that their intention is to gate that,
Okay.
preventing access to the easternmost property of the church and the back of the college property.
Right.
Access to the baseball fields will be from the north off of Stadium Drive.
Okay, do we know at all how the college feels about this?
I've spoke with the college. The college, they were indifferent.
Okay.
They didn't.
Thank you.
Councilor Diego?
Yes, I'm looking at this red box you got here. That's what we're vacating, correct?
Yes, sir.
And right there, where that white car is there, does the church plan on putting some kind of fencing there so people don't get back there, or? Because I guess that's where they're getting through. They're back there or they're coming out of there.
That's the church's parking lot. I have no idea what their intention
that's
of
the
that is.
parking lot?
Mhm.
I'm trying to visualize how they're getting back there to access into that field.
That's how they're doing it.
They're coming in right where the white car is,
Uh-huh.
box starts on
Right.
side, they're coming right through
Okay.
there. There's no way to get in on the northern end of the softball field or the baseball field.
Oh,
Years ago, this alley did continue to the southeast from where we show the east end of it now. It did continue to the southeast and the southwest between those two properties, right down the edge of that concrete driveway you're looking at. Those were vacated, I have the dates in my research, they were vacated about 20 years ago.
right. And so maybe some signage there, I guess on their behalf, state that it's private property, no trespassing or something.
That'll be their responsibility.
That's responsibility to them. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Pat, one of the things I have noticed during softball games is that, this is really strange, but every once in a while, you'll see a car parked on that levee,
Yeah.
which is strange, but true, and it's something that needs to be stopped, obviously.
We've been working with our police department and the university police department to get that stopped.
Right. Would it be maybe wise for us to ask them to at least fence part of that off so access to that back area is not allowed? Is that something we can do, or is that something we can request from them?
This will go a long way to preventing that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Pat. Councilor Gillespie?
If there's no other discussion, I'd just like to say that I think that will make the area much safer and make the motion that we approve ordinance number 7, 2015, vacating the alley on the north side of Block 1, College Subdivision, on the first reading, and set it for a public hearing on June 3rd, 2015.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 7, 2015? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, council. Next up, we will have city clerk, municipal court, discuss the upcoming council meeting schedule and direct staff.
Okay. So
We
this is-
have, it's clear that the annual conference will conflict with our regular meeting on June the 17th, and the next regular meeting falls on July the 1st. It's also clear that the June 17th meeting will require rescheduling or combining, as council will be out of town attending the conference. The July 1st meeting falls close to the 4th of July holiday weekend. Council has not yet had the opportunity to discuss whether or not July 1st represents difficulty in securing a quorum. Discussion, council? Council be here.
Thank you, Mayor. Just so the council knows, I will be around for a potential meeting on July 1st.
Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, I think the public expects a meeting on July 1st. Is it the 1st? It's the Wednesday, the first Wednesday of the month, and I may be gone that last week in June, so the first Wednesday of July works better for me.
Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree, June 1st, or July 1st is probably a good expectation for a meeting, and do a combined meeting, or moving the July 17th meeting into that July, or the June 17th meeting into the July 1st.
Councillor Griego?
I agree with Councillor Johnson. June 17th, is there a large agenda on that? Do we know yet? No.
I don't know yet.
But I agree that we should combine both those meetings and go ahead and meet on the 1st of July.
Councillor Coleman?
Combining the June 17th and July 1st meeting would be great with me as well.
Holly, I think you have a unanimous council here, so why don't we go ahead and do that?
Okay.
We'll combine the June meeting with, and hold it on July the 1st.
Just so we're clear, why don't we have a motion for that, to that effect?
I'll entertain a motion, Council. Councillor Johnson?
Mayor, I will move that we move the June 17th meeting to July 1st and do a combined meeting.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on combining our meetings? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next up, we have City Manager Legal, public hearing on ordinance number 5, 2015, amending in part the established pay plan for city officers and employees as referred to in section 15-2 of the Code of Ordinances concerning personnel rules and regulations and pay plan for city officers and employees. Heather?
Mayor, this is the same ordinance that council had first reading at the last meeting. There's nothing that has changed. Essentially, we are nearing the completion of the market study and hope to roll that out quickly. Unfortunately, with the departure of Ms. Romero, it did push us to maybe need to look at that position separately instead of looking at it comprehensively, because there was a large difference in the starting pay. Because the range is outside of that, which is within the ordinance that was approved in the budget process, I would need council's approval of this to look at the hiring range for the new position.
Thank you, Heather. Council, does anyone have any questions of Heather? Councilor Griego?
I did. I was just asking Greg here that starting pay of 18 to 25, what would that be like? Well, let's say $18 an hour. What would that be annually? We would just start somebody to.
Give me 1 second and I will. That is $37,440 roughly. Now, obviously, that's pre-taxes and all of that stuff.
That would be a starting pay for that position.
At 18, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have any further questions or comments? If not, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 5, 20-15. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on ordinance number 5, 2015? Mr. McCann, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me. Dan McCann, 1809 Sunset, Alamosa, Colorado. Now, because this is on television, a lot of people don't understand what goes on in getting salaries and things. And you guys, you make final decisions along with their city manager's help. Well, they check other cities all over the place. And sometimes you get what you pay for, but sometimes it's usually what you're being paid for is what they're telling you what you think of them. But you got to remember, in this place, and one of the reasons I stay here, and I've gone through it more than once, this place is inexpensive. I lived in LA for 5 years. I had 3 cars. At one time, I had 7 cars. In LA, the cost of car insurance was more for 3 cars because it's based upon how many wrecks are going on. And I have a special thing because I have a police officer driving in front of my house all the time. It's Adams State Police, and they are certified police. Now, in a small town, you get police protection quickly. How would you like to live in New York? Call the cops, and good luck if they ever show up. They have traffic jams everywhere. So you've got to consider what you have here. And by the way, when I came here, it was 7.5 months of cold. It's not that way anymore. And look at the blue sky. Now, some people told me when I first came to Colorado, I came to Colorado Springs. And, you know, you hear about Colorado. I grew up in California. And I'm coming into Pueblo, and I'm seeing this dirty air and stuff. Well, they don't advertise that, you know. Okay? Well, you also, over the mountain, I've talked to people there, it's not just maybe some power facilities, you have some dust in the air, and it makes it look like it's, you know, smog, and it really isn't. We've got blue sky, you got hunting, you got fishing, so this place, the word cheap is kind of denigrating. This place is inexpensive.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Is there anyone else in the audience wanting to visit us on ordinance number 5, 2015? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on ordinance number 5, 2015 and bring it to council for a decision or discussion. Councilor Griego.
If there's no further questions, I'll make the motion that we approve ordinance number 5, 2015.
Councilor Johnson.
I did have a couple questions, if you'd hang tight just a minute, Charlie.
You want to second it and then ask your question?
I will second it, and then I'll ask a question. How's that?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance
Yes,
number 5, 2015? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quickly, Heather, would you cover the the additional duties added to this job that were part of the consideration to move the salary up?
So this was a position that when we started the market survey, I was particularly sensitive towards in regards to it's a position that's in my office. And I wanted to make sure to be as transparent as possible, but to also get the most accurate information related to this position. There's a definite amount of traditional administrative responsibilities that are for the position, answering walk-in, traffic, phone calls, filing, scheduling, those types of items. However, there was the ability for us to add to that position to further benefit the city. Those duties have been to assist citywide in grant applications. So the responsibility will still lie with the department heads, but this adds another position to be looking at those and any grants that might not fit within one department. So that would require writing skills, research abilities, and a knowledge of more than just one department. The other item that we added is to help us develop a legislative policy responsibility so we can be more proactive on our duties for legislative items and communicating with the state instead of reactive. And then the third item that was added was public information responsibility. This is to try to centralize a little bit more and be more aggressive in the area of getting information out to the public, collecting that information, and just being as transparent as possible. Those functions obviously are different than your traditional administrative position, and because we're a small community is why we were grouping some of those. In larger communities, you wouldn't necessarily see all of those grouped with one person. So when they were looking at the job descriptions and doing the comparison, we really needed to make sure they were looking at the job descriptions and not the title. And so those 3 categories of additional responsibilities are probably what drove the increase in pay based on the market study.
Thank you.
Heather, I don't remember what the qualifications are, but is this a degreed position?
A associate's is preferred. High school diploma is required, and I believe it was 2 years 2 to 3 years of experience was a minimum requirement.
Thank you, Heather.
A degree is preferred.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. Next up, we have a public hearing on ordinance number 6, 2015, authorizing the issuance of special assessment bonds in the aggregate principal amount of $650,000 for the city's Special Improvement District number 14-1, prescribing the form of the bonds, providing for the payment of the bonds and the interest thereon, establishing certain accounts for the proceeds of such bonds, authorizing other actions necessary or appropriate in connection therewith, and repealing action theretofore taken in conflict therewith. Is this Eric?
It is.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Council. You will recall that this ordinance was introduced on first reading at your last meeting. I walked through some of the functions of the ordinance at that time, and I just want to highlight a couple things. The first is we have had a new estimation of the projected maturity schedule for the bond, and so I have rewritten page 8. There's a table on page 8 of the ordinance which sets forth the estimated bond maturity schedule. Let me pull that, oops, let me pull that up. Put it on my screen. This is the ordinance that is in the council packet and before you with the bond maturity schedule showing estimated principal amount of payments. Because the interest rate that we are able to secure has gone down, the schedule of those principal payments has been altered, and so the new ordinance will include the new schedule. The total payment is the same. It's a $650,000 bond. It's just the way this schedule works. It'll start out with principal payments of $30,000 a year early on and end up with principal payments of $60,000 a year at the end. And, oh, yep, Heather has that up. So this is what the new schedule will look like. That's a change from the ordinance as in the packet, but as finalized, we will incorporate this change. So just to refresh your memory a little bit, the function of the ordinance is to approve bonds in the amount of $650,000, which will cover both the construction costs and the engineering and underwriting and legal fees for getting that bond issued. Once construction is complete, after this ordinance is passed and the bond is issued, once construction is complete, it will be paid for out of the bond proceeds, and we will know at the end of the project what the total amount is. You will do an assessment ordinance at that point, and that will set the schedule for the assessments per lots. I will tell you that based on this new maturity schedule and the new interest rate, the estimated, and again, we don't know until we're done, but at this point, the estimated average total assessment per lot is estimated to be $19,700 average. And the average total annual payment on this 15-year bond per lot would be $1,900. The reason that's important is because a feature of special improvement districts is any owner within the special improvement district can choose to pay off the total assessment on that owner's lot at any time within 30 days of the assessment ordinance being passed. So they can say, I don't want to pay the interest that this is going to accrue over 15 years. I want to pay my $19,000 or whatever it may be for that particular lot. I want to pay that right now. And that payment must be made within that 30-day window. It will reduce the bond amount, and we'll go forward from there. So the bond incorporates that feature as well.
Councilor Diego?
So that, Eric, that 1,900, is that pay? No, I'm talking about the 1,900. Is that-
The average annual assessment payment?
Right. Is that something that's broken down within 12 months, or is that
No, that would be due once a year.
just once a year? So
Right.
you couldn't break that down and say, pay it monthly?
You would have to do it on your own and put
Okay.
it in your own little account if that's what you
I guess
wanted
it's
to do. but
important for the people to know that, that I'm sure it's been visited and talked about, where it can't be,
I don't know that it's been talked about with the public, so you're bringing it up maybe for the first time.
Yeah, because a lot of people would rather, not unless they store that money somewhere else, and at the end of the year, come up with the 1,900, so.
Right, and it'll actually, the way we have it currently scheduled, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but if I recall correctly, and I don't see an Amanda, the payment would be due either May 1 or June 1 to the city.
Thank you.
And once we assess it and we have the actual numbers, we'll have to send a communication to the property owners that, one, explains this 30-day time frame to them, and then also would explain where they can pay, what those charges will be, and those types of items.
Okay. So with that, I'll open the public hearing on ordinance number 6-2015. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on ordinance number 6-2015? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it to council for more discussion or a decision. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just another step in the process with this special improvement district. The people in that area are well aware of this. They voted on it, and they decided to do this improvement. So I believe I know the majority is in favor of that, and they know there's going to be a payment due. And it sounds like that it's been reduced by quite a bit, the average payment as to what they were originally told. So that's good news, and hopefully when we get through this process, we will spend a little less and it'll be even lower. But with that, I will move the council pass ordinance 6-2015.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on ordinance number 6-2015?
Excuse me.
Councilor Diego.
Excuse me, Mayor. Yeah, one more comment. I know, as Mr. Johnson stated, that the majority are for this project, but there's still a group in there that didn't really want the project. And there's a group also that already have some of the infrastructure and some of the stuff already in place without the street. Will that reflect on this 19,700 or whatever? Will that show, it'll come in saying, hey, well, you don't have to do this, and so this will only cost you X number of dollars versus the people that have to do the whole full thing?
That's correct. This ordinance does not address that, but the assessment ordinance that you pass will address that, because in passing the assessment ordinance, you need to take into account the particular benefits made to each lot. And early on, that issue was raised in some of the
Right.
public meetings, and council at that time gave direction that they did want to apportion costs, recognizing those kinds of differentials with respect to the lots. And if you look in some of the background material, the schedule of payments that Pat had produced that's included in your background material here does take that into account. Now,
Great.
that isn't finalized until you do the assessment ordinance, so that's all still to be determined by you, but that's the direction you're moving in.
Because I had gotten some calls on it and making sure that would be looked at, and I said, I'm sure they will look at it, so thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And to reiterate, it has been looked at the entire time. The other item is that while we believe our construction numbers are going to come in and the interest rate came in lower, so there are some savings there. The initial project estimates did not include the electric. So this will, with those numbers coming in lower, will allow us to most likely do a good portion of the electric if it comes in as anticipated. When we communicate with the property owners, we still need to be very careful in that these estimates on what they might be paying might still be accurate. It's just now it will be able to offset what they were going to have to pay on the electric side. It's being folded into this project. So just to make sure we're clear on that, and if you get any questions as council members.
Councilor Gillespie?
Will those assessments be made after the bidding process or once the project is finished?
Your vote to set the assessments will be once the project is complete. Just in case there's a change order or anything else, we need the final numbers for that assessment.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 6, 2015? Seeing none, start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to consideration of a request from SLV Confined Aquifer Sustainability Incorporation. Heather?
Attached to the agenda is the communication we received from this group. Staff's review of this is that there is probably a lot we have in common, of common interest with this group. We are also following the water regulations and what that impact will be on the city and what it could be on the valley as well. And we plan to continue to monitor those. I think this group is very much wanting to make sure that those rules and regulations are fair, achievable, and have those types of goals, and that would be the same as us. We recommend working closely with this group. If there's any information we can share with them, that would be helpful, and vice versa. I think that'd be to the benefit of everyone. In regards to their request for an initial contribution, it's staff's analysis that really it would be duplicate effort. We still want to monitor this. We still want our legal to be involved in how these rules are promulgated and move their way through the court system. So it really doesn't get the city any benefit beyond what we would already be doing. So in regards to justifying spending the $8,000, there's not an additional benefit to the city in doing that. It's not that we're not in support of the group or in favor of it. It would just be hard to justify that amount.
Thank you, Heather. Councilor Griego?
So if this group goes forward and without the city's participation as far as the funding, and they're able to make some changes to these rules, is that something, Eric, that'll probably happen across the board, or just to this group of well owners that have participated in this legal transaction?
It would have happened across the board.
Okay.
So you have they have the classic problem of they are doing something that would benefit themselves and at the same time benefit other people who are similarly situated, and they're trying to get other people who are similarly situated to help contribute to the project. Those similarly situated people are going to get the benefit whether they contribute or not.
And the reason I ask that is because you look at some of the names that signed this document that want the help. Some of those people have pretty much structured the rules for the wells, or have had a lot of input. So if they're able to make different adjustments, I'm sure they're going to be heard, and it might even take some kind of effect.
If it was a situation where by contributing to this, we made the decision to not dedicate staff time to do very similar type of activity, then I would say there is the benefit of contributing that fund. But in the consideration that we don't plan to change any of our activity, that there's nothing different there for the $8,000.
And I totally agree with you, City Manager, that the duplication of what's happening there. But by the same token, I myself was hoping to give them something, maybe not the 8,000, but I can understand where staff is coming from and what we're going to go through. So, thank you.
Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. The way this communication reads is they're requesting an initial contribution of $8,025. So I am thinking an initial means that they'll be following up with more requests. And so we have no idea what the final number, and if our staff is already mirroring what they're doing, and I'm sure we're going to have legal costs and our legal will be involved in this whole water thing. I would think that contributing right now probably isn't in our best interest, and I don't know how we'd explain that to taxpayers, that we're spending taxpayer money and we're still doing the work. So that would be my feeling on this.
Okay, I've got a question, Heather. Obviously, we are one of the municipalities. Have any municipalities other than Alamosa been requested, do you know, for this type of, I guess, contribution?
The only information I have is what was attached. I'm not sure who they've sent this letter out to. I could definitely ask, but as far as who's involved, it would be simply the directors that they list at the bottom of that letter.
The group is basically then comprised of all agricultural members then, for the most part.
Again, they didn't send us a complete group list. It just lists the board of directors, so I honestly couldn't tell you that. I don't know.
Thank you, Heather.
Mayor, if I may, the group, the people they're asking to participate are the people that their wells are pumping from the confined aquifer. So if some of these other municipalities that are, if they're doing the same thing like the city of Alamosa, I'm sure they have been notified and probably asked whatever their participation is, whatever they're pumping, to donate accordingly to that, so.
Councilor Johnson?
Thanks, Mayor. I would think that if they start getting into some areas that we're not comfortable with, then we could change our decision and help fund them down the road. Would that be correct?
I would hope if there was something that changed in our situation where maybe we aren't going to be as diligent in following it and spending that time and wanted to dedicate towards that cause, or if something changed on how it's moving through court and they need additional help, I would assume they would let us come in and accept our money, but I can't guarantee that.
Well, I wouldn't want to close the door completely if there's things they can help us with down the road. But with that, if there's no other comment, I would move that council support SLV Confined Aquifer Stability Incorporated in any way we can, but deny the financial contribution at this point.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second on the contribution to the SLV Confined Aquifer Sustainability Incorporation. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Grego.
I have a question on the motion. Tell me again, what are we doing here?
So what I think we should support them any way we can with staff help and with legal help if they need it, and anything along that lines, but financially at this point, no, but I'm not closing the door to that.
No, and I agree with you as far as not closing the door, but are we getting our staff involved with this group? Is that what you're saying in your motion? And I don't know how the staff's reaction would that be?
I think sharing appropriate information, anything that wouldn't hurt any negotiations we might be entering into, but if there's, any thoughts or analysis that either group has that we share that could benefit the entire valley. Obviously, if there's any information that's related to negotiations we might be doing, that would not be information we'd share. But I think working closely together is a benefit to everyone.
Okay, and that's why I want that spelled out, because if something else goes on, then we don't want to be committed, on some kind of a motion. So, thank you.
Heather, I've got is this going to unfairly encumber staff in any way, the motion?
Not my understanding of it.
Thank you. I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, start voting, please. Sorry. Start voting. Start voting, please. Holly?
The motion carries 5-1 with Counselor Griego casting the no vote.
Thank you, Council. Next up, we have committee reports. Who has a committee report this evening? Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the school board meeting. Some quick notes, they honored all their retirees throughout the district. There were teachers and staff members there who've been working there 30 years, 28 years, 18 years, so very commendable, and we thank them for their service in the district. And also, they continue with the evaluation process for teachers as the end of the year is coming. And they continue working on curriculum district-wide. Each department in each school over the last year has been working on development so that it aligns with the state. And yeah, and they look forward to the end of the year coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. Councilor Gillespie?
Yes, since Michael Stefano is not here tonight, who does sit on the golf board, I do not sit on the golf board any longer, but I did receive the financials for this next meeting, and I'm happy to report that I just had a few minutes to look over the financials before the meeting, but the golf course, the restaurant, and the pro shop were all in the black for the month of, would that be?
April.
April?
Yeah.
So that is good news. Thank you.
Councilor Coleman.
Mayor, thank you. I attended the San Luis Valley Development Resource Group's board meeting this week, and they had a representative from Wall Smith and Bateman, and I'm proud to say that they received a favorable audit review from looking through all of their financials. And the San Luis Valley Economic Development Resource Group has this very good, helpful San Luis Valley Cone Zone Survival Guide. It's a guide to help businesses survive during road construction. So I think if there are any businesses in Alamosa or in the San Luis Valley that's experiencing any type of future construction, it's very helpful information that would be good for them. So they can pick this up at the SLV DRG's office. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Councilor Johnson.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I attended the local marketing board meeting. The majority of the meeting was covering, the architect was covering the proposed designs and options for the motorway building development. At this point, everything is fairly cloudy, but there's estimates. He's put together estimates and drawings for them. I believe Pat's involved on that committee. So it appears that they're looking at about $450,000 for phase one, looking at some grants, and phase one will basically take care of the front and rear facade and getting the building in compliance for occupancy. So there'll be bathrooms and heaters and no kitchen in phase one. It'll be just a building with bathrooms and getting it in compliance. So that's where they're at right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Diego?
I had a question from Councilor Johnson. Did they discuss anything about, as far as, I know we had changed the parking needs. Did they discuss anything on that, as far as that?
They know it's an issue, and they did not discuss it,
Okay.
but the amount of funding that they have and the amount of funding that they're looking at spending, there's a big difference, so I don't want to assume what that's for, but they have addressed that. They just didn't talk about it in the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any further committee reports? Move on to staff announcements. Heather?
Before I do mine, I believe Holly has a few items.
I do have a couple. So the first one is on the advisory boards. So the recruitment went out in May's water bill. The deadline for any new applicants or the request for reappointment is the 29th. So we'll be doing interviews on June 3rd. But that's one of the questions I had for you guys. For the ones that are requesting reappointment, are you guys wanting to interview them again? Or just let them be
Council,
reappointed?
that's probably something we should discuss. She asked if someone is asking to be reappointed to the board, do we want to re-interview them, or should we just interview the folks that are requesting to be placed on the board new? Councilor Johnson?
My opinion on that would be if the board's not full, even if we reappoint, but if we have one position and two applicants and one of the people wanting to be reinstated, I would think we'd interview all three of them. But if it doesn't fill the board, I would say just reappoint those positions.
Councilor Gagel?
And I'd like to, if they're going to ask to be reappointed, I'd like to maybe at least visit with them, see what's going on, on the board, and just keep that open communication. So, if it's 1 or 0, whoever's, bring them in front of the council so we could talk to them.
Councilor Gillespie?
How many boards do we have vacancies on? I know the library board has 3 vacancies.
Let's see. So on the historic preservation, there's one position that the term is up. So they did request reappointment. The library board has 3 vacancies and 1 that the term's expired or coming up. Personnel board, there's 1 vacancy and 1 person whose term is up, and they are not requesting reappointment, so there's 2 vacancies there. Planning Commission has 2. They both have requested reappointment. And the Rec Board has 1 vacancy and 1 term that's up. I have not heard if they're requesting reappointment or not. And the Tree Board has 1 vacancy and 1 that is also up.
Another just piece of information, I think we're also going to collect information in regards to those who are requesting reappointment on attendance, and if there's any other information that would be helpful to council as you make these considerations.
Thank you, Heather. And so my understanding, okay, the Planning Commission has 2 that want reappointment? Is that what I understood correctly?
Their 2 terms are up, and they both requested reappointment.
Okay.
And I don't have any new applications for them yet.
I agree with Charlie in that, if we have like 3 people and we only have 2 positions and 1 is asking for reappointment, then maybe we should interview all 3. Probably have an opportunity to visit and see what's going on with the board. But if we only have, in the other case, if we have 2 people that are asking to be reappointed and there's nobody else asking, well then just reappoint them. I don't have a problem with that. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a good opportunity to ask our public to apply for these boards since we're on this topic. It seems like we don't get enough applications for these type boards. Very important boards, and I would encourage everyone to apply to be on these boards.
I totally agree. I think many times we know people that may be interested in donating some time or be volunteers for these boards, but many times we encourage folks to do that not only through the media and through the newspaper, wherever we can. So I think it's a great opportunity to be part of the city government myself. Heather?
I think as you guys are reviewing these, one thing to also keep in mind in order to just have a kind of a standard accountability check is to also, instead of it being considered an automatic reappointment, that council might look at some of the attendance records or other considerations. And that doesn't mean you need to do interviews or anything like that, but I think it's just, a check every year that, let's take a look, make sure our members are able to commit what you think they should be able to commit to the groups they're appointed to.
Thank you, Heather. And so, are we going to have interviews anytime? Refresh my memory.
Well,
Holly.
I don't have any new applications yet, so if you guys are just going to go with be okay with who's asking for reappointment, then I don't think there's any interviews. So, but the deadline's the 29th, so I might get
Councilor
some.
Johnson?
Well, let's hope we get some applications, and I do
Yes.
like the idea of reviewing them on attendance, and there are some important boards that there's some positions available, and I hope we get some strong applicants.
Councilor Griego?
Are we going to have a day where we're going to maybe visit with all of these different people that are being reappointed or asking to be appointed?
Well, if you wanted the interviews, we were going to do it on June 3rd before the council meeting, because that's when they would need to get reappointed, so their new term can start.
How many of those guys would be? It'd be kind of difficult to go through that many people right before council.
Right now, there's just 3 that are requesting for reappointment.
I'd like to visit with them if we can, and I don't know if that's the right time or not. And then also get the information that our city managers kind of, go ahead, Eric, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, while there may only be 3 requesting reappointment, there are, if you count up all the vacancies, it looks like there's maybe 10. So if you do get enough applicants that you would be able to fill all the vacancies, it might indeed be difficult to interview everybody on one night.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Mayor.
I don't think, I think it would be a good idea at least to interview or at least get some information on the 3 that are reapplying. That would be a start anyway. Council, how do you feel about that? Well, Holly, go ahead and set that up
Okay, so
as
you
a
want
work session or?
the 3 that requested reappointment to just come and discuss with you?
And Holly, I have a question. I noticed that you put that information out in some of the mailers. Have we posted any of this information on Facebook, on our Facebook page?
Yes,
Are we-
this did go out on Facebook, and
Okay.
it's on our city website as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. So let us know.
Okay, and then the other update I had is we did interviews Friday for the deputy clerk position, and we have extended an offer, and it has been accepted. So she will be starting on Tuesday, and I'll bring her before you at the next council meeting to introduce her.
Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome.
Great. Very good. Heather?
I do have a few items. I want to remind council of some upcoming scheduling items. The first one is actually for tomorrow. I think the clerk has reminded you, but since we are gathered here, we do have the CML Spring Outreach meeting tomorrow at noon. And if you've RSVP'd for that, please join us. The other item that we have coming up is next Wednesday. And any help we can get on getting the word out on this is our public meeting regarding the plastic bags. So that's Wednesday, May 27th at 6 p.m., and that will be at the Recreation Center. That is something where, as council, you've had enough interest to at least reach out to the public and see what their thoughts are on a potential program. Obviously, nothing has been decided or voted on, and the program, if there is support out there, could have pieces of it that are different than what other communities have. So this is the opportunity to really have a say in, should Alamosa have something like this, and if so, what that program should look like. So any assistance in getting the word out about that. If people are unable to attend that meeting, they can contact the city, and we'll collect all of that information and make sure that it gets passed on to city council.
Heather, I'm not going to be able to make that Wednesday meeting.
Okay,
I'll be at a conference.
okay.
Heather, before you move on to anything else, are we, as counselors, we encourage to be there, all of us, so we can get as much information as we can. Who will be narrating that? Is that something you want council to do? Is there an outline, an agenda of items that we might want to visit with, or how are we going to deal with that?
I think we would run it how we've run some public meetings in the past, such as the dog park. Obviously attend and listen and that type of thing. Oriana or someone else provided by Parks and Recreation will be there to take minutes or take notes so we can make sure that's very accurate. I plan to just share with the public where we are just in reviewing this, what a potential program can look like, and then just facilitate the comments from that point forward.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I've fielded a couple calls so far already about this, so both of the people that called me said that they would be going to the public meeting. So do I need to give them your number and contact information for that, or should just them being at the meeting be?
If they can make the meeting, then that would be the perfect time to go, and they can share their information there. Also, sometimes people don't necessarily want to share their opinion in a big room, so we'll have sheets of paper where people can leave their notes and comments if they don't want to speak in front of the whole group as well. But if they cannot attend the meeting, then please send us their thoughts.
Thank you.
Any other on that item? The other item that we're really trying to get the word out is the committee we're trying to start related to conservation. I've had 3 interested residents. We're going to continue to put it out on Facebook and the website, but any assistance in getting that information out. And this is the group that, if anyone has an interest in gardening or landscaping or water usage, or they're just a neighborhood leader, we're looking for individuals who are willing to kind of roll up their sleeves and help us brainstorm on, are there certain regulations we should look at in regards to water conservation or landscaping? Are there some incentives that we should look at? What should a goal be for the city in regards to conservation? What are other cities doing in regards to their parks and the landscaping or those types of things? So it's a very important group, and it's something that we want to make sure that we get some good representatives on there. So if you know of anyone that has those types of interests, just contact myself, and I'll make sure that they're notified when we start meeting. So that is another one we've been trying to get the word out. I do have a question that might take a little bit of discussion from council, and that is the question of the city fair that we've put on every year. I think a lot of years we've received rain, so the attendance hasn't been very high. We've been fortunate the last few years that the weather has been nice. In regards to putting that together, there is a good amount of staff time that goes into getting the equipment there, making sure we have staff there to answer questions and demonstrate what the equipment can do. We have some costs in relation to the food, the free handouts, those types of things. And I think it was just brought up among staff that let's just raise the issue on if this is something that council feels we should continue doing, or if you feel like this is something that maybe we don't do any longer.
One of the questions I have for you is, what's the turnout like? Has it been the same? Is it increasing? Is it dwindling as far as city fair goes?
I think it's hard to say, because I know prior to myself, I think a few years it was rain. And so it's hard to say what the turnout would have been. I think the last 2 years it's been fairly constant. We don't necessarily count people, and so if I go off my memory, it felt like maybe there is about 50 people there. Hines, you think around 50?
More than that, probably 200 to 300.
Well, okay, 200 to 300. Okay, so about 200 to 300.
About 200 or 300?
I'm glad I asked Hines. That's a big difference.
Well, I think Rusty ate about 5 of those burgers. So, but now, so
it's not a foolproof process of how we're getting that number.
I think it's a worthwhile deal that we get a chance to visit with people, and I think we should keep it going myself personally, you know, and it gives us that chance to communicate with a lot of different people, that the ones that do show up, you know, and there is people out there that are concerned of, you know, what's going on in the city and stuff. So I would say myself to keep it going.
Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't eat 5, but close. I like it. Like Charlie said, it's a chance for us to mingle with the public. I am wondering if it's something, if we set up on a biannually basis, maybe we may have a better turnout, so it's not every single year. Maybe something we consider, but I like it. I wouldn't want to totally get rid of it.
Councillor Coleman?
I'm just curious, what was the original intent of the city fair?
I would imagine it's a chance for the public to see the different types of functions that the city provides, the different types of equipment that go into performing those jobs. And, you know, sometimes you have the jobs where you don't get a lot of the glitz and glamour. And so giving the public a chance to interact with the city staff.
Well, I'm for it. I remember going to the last one and seeing the amount of kids that were there, and anything that we can do to inspire kids to see different options of career opportunities, I'm for that. So I like it. And I think there was a truck out there that showed you what it's like to have a remote control camera going through some pipes and stuff like that, and I thought that was pretty cool. So yes, I'm for it.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes, I think everyone enjoyed the fire department, the fire extinguisher, using that, putting out fires. The police cars are always a big hit. And of course the police simulators. Everyone enjoys that. So do we have a time frame that we're looking at, or?
Hines, what were you thinking?
July 22nd,
Okay, yeah, I'm all for it.
or if you want to skip a year and do it next year, that's a question that we have to do.
I think we get different people every year, so I'm in favor of it every year, but that's my opinion.
And really, Hines just wanted to do a gut check because before we start pulling everything together and promoting it, we wanted to make sure that's something council still wanted.
And I'll speak last. I'm for it as well. I think Councillor Coleman hit the nail on the head when he said the kids really enjoy it. And it's the kids that we're really after for the most part. Plus, we get to visit with all sorts of different constituents. An excellent opportunity for us to just network with all sorts of different people. And so I'd be for it, and if it doesn't happen every year, biannually is fine with me. Thank you.
The last item I wanted to share with council is a development that was brought to my attention yesterday afternoon. Councilor Griego was contacted by residents living along 7th Street next to the railroad. And the situation that appears to be occurring out there is a significant amount of loud noise, and it's been consistent for, as of yesterday, 3 days, so now it would be about 4 days, and that it's beyond just the normal business operating kind of hours as well. So I know Mr. Grego was out there and experienced how loud the sound was, especially around 7 o'clock at night. I went there about 5:30 and 8 o'clock last night and managed to probably find the only 2 times that it wasn't loud and didn't experience that. But from talking to the chief, they also had a situation occurring 11:30 last night, and our officer was out there and you know, concurred with the residents that it is a significant noise that's occurring. Met with Matt Abbey today, and essentially what they have going on is they have a contract with an agency along the Front Range in regards to testing some of the new equipment. And so if there's certain conditions this agency needs new equipment to be tested under that our railroad can fulfill, they'll bring the equipment and test it. So this is a certain type of new train that they're testing out, and so the noise is supposed to be between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. per the contract. Also per the contract, it needs to be outdoors and near an electrical source. So Matt, trying to think if there was a way they could move it or do something like that, had to go back and look at the contract. It's not something they can move to the other side of the property if there's no electrical there and those types of things. It's similar testing that they've done in the past, but they've been able to locate it on the other side of the shed, so that could act as a sound barrier. Because of the locations of some of their other cars, they're not able to locate it at the other location. So it should be, the testing should be done at the end of next week. Now, the sound that they were hearing after the 7 o'clock time frame, the 11:30, actually is not related to the testing, it's related to the temperatures. And what there is it's an automatic start that if the temperatures get too low, the engines start themselves up, get to a certain temperature so they don't freeze up. Matt cannot prevent them from doing that because obviously an entire engine that's not his could freeze up, and that would be very significant. He is going to try to look and see if there's other things they can do, but unfortunately, if we have several nights until they're done where it is this type of temperature, there is the possibility of that occurring. When we discussed it at staff meeting today, Eric hadn't yet had time to do research in regards to the noise ordinance, applicability to the railroad, those types of things. He's been conducting some research. It appears at the state level that there might be some ranges in which what's acceptable for different types of noises, so that's something we're going to look into. I do want to be clear, though, that that Matt has been very much looking at every possibility to try to limit what the noise is that's within his control. And so it's an unfortunate situation. It's a very loud noise. It's something that is probably most people would consider unreasonable.
Mayor, I was going to say something in council comment, but maybe if you give me the opportunity,
Go ahead,
I'll speak my
Councilor
piece here. Just as the city manager said yesterday about 7:15 around there, I got a call from some residents there in that West 7th area. In fact, it was Mrs. Ortega. And when I got there, boy, there was this loud noise. And let me share it here with you, if I can. Imagine that 10 times. That was in my truck. And that thing 10 times, you couldn't even talk. And what she told me that they were running this thing during the nighttime. So what I did was I went over there and I visited with one of the gentlemen that were running the machine, and he says, like she says, we run it from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening. Well, this was already 7:30 when I was there, when it was still running, and I told him, I says, you got a bunch of people here that are just totally freaked out on this noise. They can't sleep. It's such a loud noise. It vibrates stuff all over the place. And even though Mrs. Ortega was the one out there, we got a apartment complex there in the corner. We got a daycare right behind there. We got a mental health group there, housed there. All these people were like, what's going on, and then after that, I went ahead and I met with Matt Abbey myself, explaining to him what was going on out there. And when our conversation first started, I think he was a little bit hot, but I think we were able to cool him down and say, hey, we got a problem out there. I said, both of you guys have a right to exist out there. I says, and we're human beings, and we need to work together. And what he told me was, and that's a real good friend, and he told me that, he showed me a book where he told me that nothing applies to the railroad. We can grow our weeds as tall as we want to. We can make as much noise, because what I told him, that I had told Mrs. Ortega, next time this noise comes up, call the police, which she did. So after that, I said, well, and I wasn't there to argue with him and that, but I think in fairness to the community out there, and in fairness to Mr. Abbey also, I think we need to find out, and you're saying you're doing some research, Eric, on who can do what and what can happen, because those people have a right to sleep at nighttime, and if you go out there, he said they're gonna run, through Friday and then I think next week also. Go by there and just listen to it and just put yourself in that position for the whole day long, on the sound of it, you know. And like I said, he said too that he was trying to put it on the north side of that big building, and he had done it a couple times, but because they're doing the passenger train, he wasn't able to do that. So, and he's making, like the city manager said, he's making an effort, but we got a guy over here taking a stance, and then we got the community over here saying, hey, what are you gonna do? You know, there's gotta be some kind of, and I told him, let's try to work something out, you know, and I don't know what's gonna happen, you know. You got some very irate people out there, and I don't blame them, you know, because that noise is, it's so loud that it you know, you can't even talk. I couldn't even talk to Ty right here if we were talking out there. That's how loud that is out there, so. But I guess we'll wait for your research, Eric, and see what, you know, because we both need to live together as neighbors, like I told them, and find out some way to work with this. And I just keep getting this look from you, but we're going to do something, or what are we going to do here?
You're getting a look from me?
Yes, sir.
I am a lousy poker player. I'm really excited to pick that up. There is a state statute that specifically addresses noise and railroads and says that railroads shall be allowed, if the noise is generated on the railroad right-of-way, they shall be allowed the maximum amount of noise set forth in the statute, which it calls it an industrial area and lets them have, I just had it here, I can tell you, lets them have, that's not the one I wanted. It's either 75 decibels or 80 decibels. And it changes depending on the time of day. So our noise ordinance could well be preempted by federal railroad statutes. It's 80 decibels from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 75 decibels from 7 p.m. to the 7 a.m. the next morning. So it cuts it down 5 decibels at night. I don't know anything about decibels. I don't know how loud 80 decibels is or 75 decibels is. Our noise ordinance, which I was about to say probably is preempted by the federal statute and by the specific state statute, doesn't deal with decibels, so we don't have a decibel meter. We may want to go out and buy or borrow one and find out how many decibels this noise is.
Do we have any kind of stuff like that, Chief?
No.
I know that we, with our noise ordinance, we
don't have a decibel meter, but I do have access to one. I can probably get it.
okay. Look, it'd be interesting just to see what it, you know, because this thing is loud. I'm telling you, very loud.
The other item is for obvious reasons, the Ortegas are not happy with the situation. I met with them this afternoon, and unfortunately, it was prior to having some of the research done. And so during that meeting, I shared with them that we were not sure how the noise ordinance would interact with this situation. Obviously, at this time, we know that it's not so much the city's noise ordinance, but what's out in the state statute. So that is information that I was not able to share with them.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do feel for the neighbors. I do hope that Matt does follow up and get that done. This is a short period of time. I even hate saying this, but there's a specific reason I don't live next to an airport or never would, or an industrial area. There's inherent noise from those specific areas, and when you choose to buy property next to those, while you don't want the neighborhood to be kept up all night, there is an inherent situation there. So, yeah, I would never buy next to an airport, never will. And I do hope he continues to work with them, and I do hope that the noise is subsided, but they do run a business there, and it's just an inherent type thing.
Councilor Grego.
And I kind of disagree with you, Mr. Johnson, because there is rules and regulations that everybody has to, you know, the railroad out there is not, they don't have their own, even though they think they have their own rules and regulations and can operate whatever they want to. I don't think they can. You know, there's got to be a fairness for the community and for the railroad. I'm not saying on one side, but there has to be a fairness out there, and that's why I'd like to see if maybe if they're surpassing those decibels, you know, there should be some kind of enforcement on it. You know. If you. So.
All right.
Okay.
And so it just goes back to where I was like about 5 or 10 years ago, specifically dealing with loud mufflers. And I was told we are not going to buy decibel meters and we're not going to enforce that. We're going to go ahead and allow our officers to enforce that part of the noise ordinance. And so, you know, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. But I totally agree with both Councilor Grego and Councilor Johnson. I mean, this is a dilemma that the staff's going to have to look into and advise us, and hopefully that will be forthcoming. But other than that, people really have no choice but to listen to the noise. Obviously, is that what we're going to tell our folks? They have no choice but to listen to the noise?
I think what I heard was they have no choice if it's within the state statute of those limitations. If it's outside of those limitations, I think the chief has indicated he may be able to borrow the equipment we would need to test to see if it's outside of that, and then we would have to have those discussions with the railroad.
I know there are some communities, and I'm not sure if it's, Castle Rock. I think Castle Rock was in a dilemma when it came to the horn noise as trains go through Castle Rock. And so I'm not exactly sure, but I think they were even trying to sway the legislature into making sure that some of those horn noises were brought down. Do you remember anything about that, Heather?
There's been a lot of efforts from communities that see different types of train traffic than we do, especially related to the horns. Unfortunately, that's a different area because it's relating to the safety at those crossings, and so I think federal law has been a little bit different on the horn side of it compared to the other operations of a railroad. But I do know there's been some communities along the Front Range especially working to try to maybe have some change in that area.
Thank you, Heather. Well, obviously we're on the horns of a dilemma, and we will see what council has to say to us as we move forward. Is there any further comment on staff announcements?
No, but just wanted to make you aware of that situation.
Thank you. And so we'll move on. There are no consent calendar items for us as a liquor licensing authority, so we'll move on to council comment. Councilor Coleman.
I just have a brief comment. I know that we're trying to do all we can do to get people to join the different boards that we have openings on, and also to get information out on the conservation board as well. Just like to add that we should probably reach out to the local media, the newspaper, and also the radio stations, and probably put out some public service announcements in regards to that. I don't know if we've done that yet or not.
We did press releases. Press releases? Yes, to those agencies.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to thank staff. We had a water meeting last Wednesday. Eric, Heather, all of staff that was involved. The water issue is kind of getting to be a difficult situation and bringing us up to speed on what we need to know and what we need to do to keep our city moving forward with water. Was very interesting. Thank you for that.
Councilor Coleman.
One more thing. I wanted to thank the police chief and everyone else who participated in the activities that we participated in last week. Great turnout, and we had a great support with council as well as the community. So thank you.
Thank you. And I had Heather, myself, Councilor Grego attended, and I'm not sure, Rusty, Councilor Johnson attended the retirement for Dr. Svaldi and Ty Coleman as well. And so we said goodbye to Dr. Svaldi, but we've got Beverly McClure, who is coming on board over at the university, and we're excited to have her in our community, and we look forward to working with the university in any way we can. Other than that, I don't have any more comments. I don't see any more. And so with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.